everybody. Welcome back to The Last Word. Week 3, obviously. I look a little different. I've had a different hairstyle every week. Adam looks a little bit different. He took off all of the beard that he had. And we also look a little different because we have a new special guest this week. This is Keith Demolder. So, Keith, why don't you tell everybody who you are, what you're doing, and a little bit about you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Hailey, for that introduction. I'm Keith Demolder. I'm a weekend sports anchor and reporter out here in El Paso, Texas. I know these two folks from my time with SWX back there in the Great Treasure State. I just moved here a couple weeks ago, and it hit 96 yesterday. So we love to see that.
I love Texas. Obviously, I'm from there. I'm super excited that you're living in my state while I can't live there. I'm going to dive right into this week 3.
Yeah, let's do it.
Week 3, episodes 5 and 6. The big thing I think that everyone was looking forward to was seeing Kobe Bryant, and that's kind of where I want to start. Adam, I'll lob it to you. Kind of talk about your thoughts on seeing Kobe, if you thought the intro was good, or just your overall thoughts about it.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. That All-Star game is iconic for me because they had all the jerseys, and that's how it should be now. Like, I don't care. Now they're all Jordan logos or whatever. Like, I want to see all the different colors of all the different teams together. I think that's really cool. It's aesthetically pleasing, if you will. But also you had so many guys that were like, damn, dude, there's like Gary Payton, John Stockton, Karl Malone, like the Admiral, everybody's in there. So it was a really cool way to start the episode. And then it was also super interesting to hear all the players discuss how selfish Kobe was as a player early in his career, because he was, and we don't necessarily think of him so much that way anymore, because he did become a better passer, under Phil Jackson. But then, Michael Jordan obviously influenced him. It was cool to see Kobe and then hear Kobe say that he wouldn't have won those championships without Jordan. So it was, I guess, bittersweet too, just seeing Kobe. It was like, whoa, there's Kobe Bryant, man.
Yeah, my favorite part is kind of the part you mentioned too, about how, how they're all in the locker room talking about Kobe as a player. And it's so funny that resonated with me, because I do that all the time with people where I'm like, oh, like even with my coworkers now, where I'm like, ooh, like I wonder what they say about me. And, so it's so funny that even like at the elite level of basketball that Kobe was already playing so early in his career, it was super funny just to like tap in and hear the way that they were like, oh, Kobe's so selfish.
The young dude, yeah.
Yeah, the young guy. I think that at one point they even referred to him as the Lakers dude or whatever. Like they didn't even call him his name. Yeah, that young Lakers kid or whatever. And I'm kind of on the same boat as you. Like, it was really, I think, it was hard, but also heartwarming to see, Kobe there and speaking, and not just seeing his highlights, but actually listening to the things that he said. And I almost wish they would have dove a little bit more into Kobe, but also I understand that they probably were limited in the footage that they had. So kind of a, like a bittersweet thing, like you said about that. Keith, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you guys just said. I think that, given the fact that, it's a Bulls-centric doc, you can't really talk about Kobe as much as we want to talk about Kobe. I thought the craziest thing about that was the fact that, like, Kobe played the same time that, like, Jordan played and all these other guys played, which when you think about Kobe Bryant, you think of him as, like, a post-Jordan player, kind of in, like, they're two separate eras, but no, they, like, overlapped a little bit. And I think that was so cool to kind of see how it's a little bit of a transition, like a passing of the torch a little bit. And that, like, you're right, like these guys who are, it's Michael Jordan, like the greatest of all time, or, disputed greatest of all time. And yet he actually is giving the time of day. He's actually talking about Kobe Bryant when he's, 18, 19, 20 years old. Like, that is just insane to think about.
It's almost like, I think, when and if they put together the Kobe Bryant documentary that they're teasing all over social media, I almost feel like that's how it's going to be with like him and LeBron, because I feel like it's that same dynamic where, like they overlap, but there's such generational stars that have such prominence that it's weird to think about like them playing like at the same time.
It's a shame they never met in the finals, because like, with Jordan and Kobe coming in that, I mean, different show entirely, but two of the best draft classes ever, 85 and 96, 97. So Kobe coming in with Iverson and all those guys, and going against Jordan the final 2 years, and then playing against him a little bit when he was with the Wizards too. But yeah, it's a shame they didn't get to play longer against each other. You know what I mean? And I always think like, geez, Jordan really could have still played.
Like the Tom Brady of basketball, if he wanted to be.
Yeah, and like, I don't know if this steers us in a different subject entirely, but one thing I'm starting to get out of this is like, I'm like, come on, Jerry. Like, dude, like, why are you the way you are right now? He's like, organization. We just have an awesome organization. It is the best organization. And it's like, that's cool, man. Can you man? And also Michael Jordan is good. Like, just say it. And also we lucked out. We lucked out. Right. We got Jordan Pippen and like this hippie guy who knows how to coach anybody, like, yeah. I don't know. It really rubs me the wrong way in hindsight. As I said, I'll have a prop today. Phil Jackson inspired the mustache. I had to take off the beard. So who wore it better, But anyway, absolutely, Phil. But it's just like, how do you let your ego get in the way of the greatest coach ever who then wins 5 with Kobe? Like, you have lightning in a bottle, you know what I mean? And you also have that obviously with Jordan and Pippen. So it makes me sad to like think that a lot of my early basketball memories are like Blazers Pippen and Wizards Jordan. You know what I mean? It could have been.
Well, and it's funny that you bring up his small ego, because I know that in the first couple of episodes, that was one of the things they focused on with Jerry Krause is, the reason why he is the way he is because he was the small fat man growing up that never had the confidence or the abilities to do the things that the people he is now in charge of are doing. So I think that has a lot to do with it. I think people, when they have that sort of like small man syndrome or small woman syndrome, will be gender inclusive here. It's hard for them to give other people the credit that they deserve. Like, I think that from his perspective, he wanted it to be so much about the organization to prove that like you don't have.
And organizations do win championships. Like, you look at the Warriors right now, there's teams that do it the right way. And a lot of that goes into really good coaching and getting the right players. But it's just a shame that there was such tension between, honestly, a bunch of geniuses.
You bring up those as well. Oh, go ahead, Keith.
Oh, no, sorry. I was just going to say, I mean, I think when you think about what's most eye-opening about this whole documentary, and I mean, quite frankly, I didn't know who Jerry Krause was, like, before this whole thing.
Me neither.
I had no idea. And
I'm still mad at him for trading Kukoc, so.
I think that, like, here's what I'll just say about the Jerry Krause stuff. Like, the disrespect, just blatant disrespect that he got from his players, I thought was kind of eye-opening. The fact that, like, Pippen would just, cuss him out on the bus, or Jordan saying, like, oh, like, don't be smoking the cigar. It's going to stunt your growth, that sort of thing. Obviously there's jokes made in jest, but I think the feeling was around the team that they didn't like him. They didn't respect him. They didn't have anything for him.
Absolutely not. I mean, obviously I'm not from there, but I definitely can tell you that they all hated him.
Yeah, which as a GM, I mean, if you put yourself in Jerry Krause's shoes, like, you're a boss and your subordinates are disrespecting you. I mean, you're powerless essentially, because essentially, like, the players run the team. And so I'm sure for him, he was trying to establish some order. And I don't know. I mean, when you're working with a guy like Michael Jordan, it's that kind of transition. My second point, we can look back and think about Jordan like, oh my goodness, he was the greatest of all time. Like, why would they ever treat him like that? But at the same time, there's a lot of players now that I think about that, like, oh, well, he was the greatest of all time, like LeBron or something. And think about certain decisions that, like, organizations make and think like, oh, well, why would they want to upset LeBron by, like, doing this thing, like getting rid of D Wade or whatever it was. I think, like, it's definitely a GM of a winning franchise is, like, one of the hardest positions, because, like, sometimes you make decisions for the team's sake that are unpopular, like, Pippen or whatever, like not wanting to sign him to max money so that they could get other guys, or, bringing in Kukoc who was unpopular. I don't know. It's just, it's kind of a thankless job. So I kind of feel for Jerry Krause a little bit, but at the same time, like Pippen and Jordan had that like brotherhood, and that's why there was so much animosity between them.
I think it's interesting you bring that up because one of the things my idea of analyzing greatness in basketball is influence as well as how good are you? How good are you at the game? But also, like, what is your influence? And that is an intentionally ambiguous question because how influential are you on culture? Check Jordan, check LeBron, right? And Jordan was in this time when it was the end of an era where the power structure was about to change, you know? And so I think that Jordan, because I don't have like an opinion whether it should be a players league or a coaches league or a managers league. It should be a league for everybody, you know what I mean? But inevitably you're going to have tension because the dudes behind the scenes who know to scout Scottie Pippen or like, dude, I think Klay Thompson might be all right. You know what I mean? The guys who are able to see these pieces and put them in control of a good coach who they also picked out. That's extremely important. But who's making the money? Who's making the plays? Who's the face of the franchise? It's always going to be the players. Mm-hmm. And so now players are able to wield that power more than ever. And I think that is because of Jordan being so great and so powerful that, like, I mean, if you're Jerry Krause, you don't have any leverage, right? Because this is the best player to ever walk the earth. And so it really did, like, change the game in that layer. And then LeBron continued in that work with things like the decision and the even the charitable things. I'm sorry for, like, the novel there, but end of the rant, end of the TED Talk there, as you like to say, Hailey.
Thank you for coming to Adam's TED Talk. But yeah, no, I think that those are both valid points because I think that what Jerry Krause could have done better in is maybe, you know, embracing the fact that he had this team of superstars. Like, I think about, the first thing I always think about is like my hometown teams, the Dallas Mavericks. Like, Mark Cuban saw that they had a gem in Dirk Nowitzki, and what did they do? They built a franchise around this guy. I mean, like, you can't go anywhere in downtown Dallas where the American Airlines Center is without seeing Dirk this, Dirk that. They just renamed the street that, you know, is right there by American Airlines Center after Dirk. And I think that if Jerry maybe adopted a little bit more of that and maybe embrace the players a little bit more, that bullying and the blatant disrespect, Keith, that you talked about might not have been as prevalent because, you know, like, as someone who's played college sports, I don't want to play for someone who is going to treat me like trash, you know, or who's not going to accept the fact that I'm the leading scorer on the team. You know, like the phrase, put the team on your back, like, yeah, it's kind of a, you know, it has a weird connotation, but at the same time, like, the person who puts the team on their back, like, that's the person who is recognized.
Yeah, it's Batman and Robin here, Jordan and Pippen, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I see it both ways. Like, do I think –
definitely.
Would I treat a GM the way that the Bulls treated Jerry Krause? Probably not. But if my GM treated me a little bit better because I knew I was a superstar, maybe if I was bullying, I wouldn't have as much reason to bully. If that makes sense.
Ja Field.
Yeah.
Ja Field. Very quickly, you mentioned your boy Toni Kukoc, and I want to talk about him and kind of how they just kind of, like, I think, threw him into the series. I don't know that they really, I mean, they obviously explained who he was, but I'm just kind of interested to hear your thoughts on Toni and the way that they portrayed him.
Well, I heard about that story in the Barcelona Olympics. I'd never seen footage. And that was very cool. Toni Kukoc was such an important part of that team. And when Rodman wasn't healthy at certain points, or if they needed to do something different for schemes, you know what I mean? Like, Rodman's not a shooter. Toni Kukoc is the kind of player where if you put him in today's game, he might be an all-star. He was the sixth man of the year, but this is a guy who came in the early 90s who was a 6'11", like, phenomenal passer that could shoot the lights out. You know what I mean? Like, a little bit soft. He'd probably be more of a power forward today as opposed to a small forward, but just a super valuable part of the team. And the first jersey I went like with my dad to Sports Authority was like 8 years old, or 7 years old or something. I was like, I want the Kukoc. I think I was 7 because it was 7. You know what I mean? But he's a legend, I think, and he's not gonna, I don't think necessarily get his number retired, but I'm glad they included him because it would be BS, frankly, if they didn't. He was such an important part of that team. But those are my thoughts, I guess, on the Kook.
It's so hard. I was going to say it's so hard just talking about like the way that, because we're in the media business. Like a majority of what I think when I watch this documentary is like, how as a filmmaker would I tell this story?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I think about like the supporting cast, because we know Pippen, we know Jordan, we know Rodman, and those seemingly like and Phil are like the 3 guys that we focus, or 4 guys that we focus on. But then you have all these other parts that are like integral to the success, like Steve Kerr, who wouldn't score a bajillion points a game.
From Steve Kerr.
Well, he's been in there. He's been interviewed, but like we haven't like really talked about
into it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, I mean, Steve Kerr, coach of the Golden State Warriors, we hardly even knew him as a player, really. But he's got 5 rings, won a couple with the Spurs. So it's hard as a storyteller to like focus on the main people without leaving some of the external people out, like Kukoc or like Horace Grant, right? And some of these other guys, like they were as much a part of the team as any, like Bill Paxton or like Purdue, whoever that center is. Like some guys, I'm like, I don't even know who these guys were. So I think like I wish they focused on that aspect a little bit more, because I think like it is a team sport, and I think like when you think of how dominant the Bulls were, that includes their support guys.
Yeah.
So. Sorry, I got a message that said we were running out of time. We only have 10 minutes left. So
no worries.
Yeah, so I guess we'll wrap up here. I guess we'll just go to closing thoughts. So Keith, we'll go to you since we've been going to Adam first. Giving your closing thoughts and what you are most excited about for next week's episode.
Well, next week, I mean, that's when they're getting into the whole Jordan leaving the team and that whole thing. That itself, we've watched Space Jam and him going to baseball or whatever. We've watched plenty of other documentaries talking about, Jordan rides the bus, that one, for 30 for 30. And it still continually blows my mind, the idea of the greatest like walking away like that. For real. It's just I cannot fathom it. I mean, Michael Jordan quitting basketball and playing baseball. I mean, just to play baseball, that's one thing, but like quitting basketball early is just unconscionable. So that I'm really looking forward to, because I mean, and you kind of heard it towards the end of the episodes of him like, I'm getting tired. I'm getting, when you start winning, it becomes kind of like a chore or something like that. He was just saying how much he didn't like upholding the standard, which is funny because he's such a competitive guy, and you would think that like Michael Jordan is insatiable and that he's never satisfied, but in fact, then it's like it's just so hard to keep winning. So I am really excited to see next week what happens. I want to see like what Scottie thought about leading the team himself, and maybe did Jerry Krause give him more respect? I don't know. What did Phil think? So yeah, we'll see. I don't know.
Chalfois?
Yeah, I'll keep it relatively short and sweet here. I'm looking forward to how they wrap it up, because the Utah Jazz, we're about to meet the Utah Jazz, and I'm predicting that we're going to get into how awesome Jerry Sloan, their coach, John Stockton, and Karl Malone were. If I'm not mistaken, they never missed the playoffs once. Sloan was the coach. And so Stockton comes in 84, Malone comes in 85, the pick and roll that, it's the best ever. And then to meet them twice in a row, 2 years in a row, there's no way they can tell the story without telling a little bit of their story and saying how much of a competitor, I guess, that team was for the Bulls. And I'm looking forward to seeing that finals, because it was a fight. That one goes 6 games. And they're going to squeeze in some Kerr getting punched. They're going to talk about the flu game, you know what I mean? And they'll wrap it up and it's going to be great.
You are so ready to see Steve Kerr get punched. I think for me, the biggest thing I'm looking forward to is, like you said, the step away, because I told Adam at the beginning of this, my only real recollection of Michael Jordan is from Space Jam, other than, you know, like knowing that he was the greatest basketball player or whatever. So I'm curious to see like if the real event lives up to like my childhood expectations that I've built of it. And I guess like my final thought is like, I hope one day I can be famous enough to have a shoe deal that I really don't want that makes like multi-million dollars in a year. I think that's all I want in life.
Cheers to that, buddy.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah. Cool. Keith, thanks so much for joining us this week.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. Great to see you.
We're going to do this
nice to see you guys as well.
next week after episodes 7 and 8. So that's
exciting stuff.
Peace.